Natasha, what have we done? So I have the new Natasha Denona Golden Palette. I did receive this in PR and I'm so grateful for that. I feel like there's always so much hype around a new Natasha Denona palette. So today I'm going to swatch out the entire Golden Palette, and I'm also going to swatch it and compare it to some other palettes, including the original Gold Palette, the Urban Decay Naked Honey, and Sigma Ambiance. If you do want to purchase this palette, it is $69, but if you do want to purchase it on her site, my code ANGELABRIGHT can save you some money there. I know you guys are dying to see swatches, so let's dive right into it. Here is what the palette looks like, and you might notice that mine looks a little bit messy, a little bit swatched, and that's because I did already do some swatches for some short form content. First we have Maliko, and this is a matte cream powder off-white. Next is Nubia, and this is a sparkling foiled gold nude champagne. I love this color so much. And then we have Panna, which is a matte cream powder beige. And this shade is actually very close to my skin tone. I think that'll be a nice kind of blending out shade for me. This next one is Aria, and this is a matte medium light dusty sand. I'm actually going to build that one up just a little bit more. Didn't swatch that great. Next is Fizzy, and this is a sparkling wet effect golden nude. I love this formula from Natasha, kind of as just like a little topper shade. So pretty. And then we have Varus, and this is a metallic medium antique brass. Next is Aura, and this is a metallic golden ivory. Yeah, I definitely do see a little bit of a gold reflect in there. It's not completely white. Next is Teak, and this is a medium matte dusty caramel. I had this problem when I did the swatches for short form. They just kind of look a little bit patchy at first, but I definitely can build them up. But I do just want to point that out. Yeah, it's just not like super smooth looking there. Next is Kava, and this is a sparkling champagne gold. I also really like this kind of shade. This is Sandstone, and this is a matte medium ochre. See, again, my little first pass that I do just is not looking fantastic. There we go. Next we have Aurum, and this is a metallic muted gold. Next is Log, and this is a matte dark brown. Pretty simple. Do you see what I mean here? And I mean, this is just a swatch. It might apply better on the eyes. I just really swatched the shades to see all the colors together. So this doesn't really speak to how the formula is going to work on the eyes. But like, that doesn't look great. Next is Oro, and this is a metallic warm gold. So this one was a muted gold, and this is a warm gold. Next is Flesh, and this is a matte light warm nude. And then the last shade is Alchemy, which is, sorry, Alchemist. I said alchemy because of Taylor Swift. This is Alchemist, and this is a metallic brass. See, I feel like all these shimmers swatched out really nicely, but again, I struggled a little bit with the matte swatches. All right, I'm trying my best to get my entire arm in the frame here, but here is the entire Golden Palette swatched out. Yes, I know it is another brown, warm-toned palette, but as someone that just likes to wear neutral shadows now, I really like this color story. And I would just say like these couple shades down here are the warmest from the palette. I kind of want to say these lean a little bit more on the neutral side. I like that it's not a super orangey warm toned, if you know what I mean. I have a little pamphlet here I'm reading off of, but it says that Natasha took inspiration for this palette from one of her most loved palettes, and that is the original Gold Palette. Now, first of all, just packaging wise, I way prefer the packaging of her new midi palettes. Like this one just has a lot of space in here. I also find this thing very annoying, and I don't know, I just prefer this packaging overall. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that there are 9 shades in this palette that are also in the Golden Palette. All of the shades that are kind of duplicates are more of the neutral tone browns. So clearly, as you can see in Golden, we don't have any of these bluish tones, and we also don't have any of these kind of fun yellowy green colors. So I'm going to start with the like matching shades from each palette side by side and then swatch out the rest of it. So the first matching shade is Aria. And I noticed this when doing my short form swatches that the formulas do feel different for these matte shades. Like honestly, feeling this Aria shade, it feels kind of dry to me, whereas this one feels very creamy. So this is the one from Golden, and this is the one from Gold. Okay, I got a couple things to say right off the bat. The shade itself is slightly different. I feel like the one in Golden has a little bit more warmth to it. And again, formula-wise, like you can see this one went on a little bit patchy, but this one looks very smooth. So it's just interesting. Again, we're only on the first shade, but I gotta point it out. The next matching shade is Kava. Kava from Golden and Kava from Gold. I feel like that is pretty dang spot on. I'm not really seeing or feeling any difference there. Next is Oro. There's Golden, and there is Gold. I think the shade does look very similar, but I feel like this side is just popping a little bit more. Next is Log. Yeah, again, feeling these matte shades. This one just feels so much creamier on my finger. Like, I'm applying a lot of pressure here. Oop, that kind of made messy. And Log from Gold. That is a huge difference. Let me go over the one from Golden here. Yeah, see, I can definitely build it up to be pretty dang close, but that one just glided right on. Next matching shade is Varus. Those ones look pretty good to me. Next is Sandstone. Sandstone from Golden and Sandstone from Gold. Same thing with the mattes. I don't know why these ones feel so much drier. And then we have Alchemist. And that one looks pretty spot on to me. Next is Teak. And this is Teak from Golden and Teak from Gold. Again, this matte side feels so much smoother. And then the last matching shade between the palettes is Aurum. Now just looking at these two shades, it looks like the formula is kind of different. Here's Aurum from Golden and Aurum from Gold. I definitely prefer the one from Golden. It just kind of packs a little bit more of a punch. This one seems, I don't know, almost kind of more sheer in a way. All right, so those are the 9 corresponding matching shades between the two palettes. Now let's swatch out the rest of the shades from both palettes. I want to swatch these two kind of more white shimmery shades together. So first is Aura. And again, this is like a white that has a little bit of gold in it. And then swatching Spark next to that one. I definitely prefer this shade. It's just more of like kind of a fun glittery topper shade, and this one just, it's not really doing it for me. Natasha, what have we done? I don't think there's any other shades that are pretty corresponding because like we kind of just have like the blues and greens left and then a couple shimmers in here. So, okay, let's just do the rest. So I'm gonna do Maliko. Is that matte white or like kind of off-white shade? And then staying on the left side of my arm, let's do Nubia. I love the tone of this color. I can see myself wearing that shade every single day. Next is Pana. Another very light, almost kind of skin tone color for me. And then we have Fizzy, which is one of the sparkling wet effect shadows that I do really like. And then the last shade, Flesh. So it kind of seems like these 5 shades that don't really have anything similar are definitely lighter tone shades. I honestly don't know how like these 3 shades would show up on deeper skin tones. Probably not well, I'm assuming. But I personally do really like these 2 shimmers because these are shades that I do love to wear at the moment. All right, now let's grab the 5 shades in here that are not in Golden. Let's start with Lime Chrome. Oh my gosh. And then let's do Brass, just to keep these shades next to each other. Let's do Aurora next. And then Python, and this one is one of her like actual cream shadows. And where is the last one that's not in? I fucking hate this thing. Oh, Dijon. Okay. The Mustard shade. This shade just looks so random to me. Okay, let's talk about these last 5 shades. I am so glad she did not put this mustardy shade in that palette. I'm honestly just kind of sick of mustardy shades, and I feel like brands do that to be cool, and it's like, I'm just over it at the moment. But these 2 like yellowy green shimmer shades, especially this one, Brass, I love this color. Honestly, one of the shades in my Sigma palette that I created is inspired by this color because I love it so much. So personally, I'm kind of sad to not see one of these shades in the new Golden palette. And as far as the more blue tone shades, I personally don't really use these when I use the gold palette, so I'm kind of okay that she didn't put them in golden, but again, I just really would have liked to see one of these two shades in here. Now to answer your burning question of Angela, if I have the original gold palette, do I need the new golden one? I'd probably say no, just because 9 of the shades, which is more than half of the palette, is in the new one. And like I was saying earlier, these 6 shades that are in golden, for me, are shades that I really do like to wear and shades that I do wear on a daily basis. Like for me and my skin tone, I can tell you that these 2 shades are going to be great blending transition shades for me. Like I said, I love these 2 kind of more nude tone sparkly shades. This could be a highlight shade for me, and then I don't really use a matte white that often, but I could find some kind of purpose for it. But if I'm looking at the right side of my arm, again, I don't really reach for these 3 shades from the original gold palettes. Like if I took those away, that's my kind of jam. And again, for my preferences, this palette has even more of my jam in it. And like I said earlier, just the feel of this formula and how the matte shades swatched out compared to the new palette, like this side just did swatch out a lot better. I think in a separate video, I'll have to do an eye look where I'm like actually putting on both palettes on my eyes and comparing them that way, because swatches can only say so much, you know? Like what truly matters in a palette is how does it look and wear on your eyes. So that'll definitely come in another video. So I hope this kind of gave you everything you wanted to know about the original palette with the new golden palette. Now other than the original gold palette, I think Sigma Ambiance was the second most palette that people were like, can you please compare it to this one? So of course I'm going to do that. I actually haven't even looked at these 2 side by side, so this is going to be my complete first impressions with you here. Okay. All right, first impression, looking at these 2 palettes side by side, Ambiance looks like it leans a little bit more on that warm orange side that I was talking about, and how I mentioned that I don't really like that oranginess in shades anymore, whereas Golden does look kind of more neutral overall. And also in Ambiance, I'm seeing a lot more depth in this palette as well. Like, you know, in this shade, we only have this one log, which looks like Enrich, but we also have like these shades that have a bit more depth to them. But let's swatch out these 2 side by side, see if I can find any similar comparable shades. And I just put it out there really quick that I love filming these videos. Like I am having so much fun right now, just like comparing and swatching and everything. I love this. First of all, I want to compare these 2 kind of matte light shades, starting with Maliko, and then I'll put Days right next to that. Ooh, that is a pretty dang good match. It's funny because in the pan, this one looks lighter, but in the swatch, those 2 look like the same shade, honestly. Some of these shimmers are kind of tricky for me, so I don't really know how I want to go about this. I think I'm going to start with the shades that I know for sure look pretty dang close, so let's go with the dark browns here, even though this shade keeps swatching terribly for me. Okay, so we got Log from Golden, and then we'll do Enrich. You can see it here too. That shade just glided on much easier than Log did. Okay, but shade-wise, again, really freaking close there. Okay, let's do this gold shade Sunflower. I think that'll be closer to Oro. Right, we got Oro and Sunflower. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's kind of crazy. That's another, like, duplicate match, in my opinion. Okay, now let's look at some of these brown shades. I feel like Basque and Sandstone could be pretty close to each other. So this is Sandstone. And then Basque. Pretty dang close. I don't think they're exact, but like they would definitely serve a very similar purpose in an eye look for me. I feel like Midas is gonna match something. Maybe Alchemist? I just want to sing the alchemy every time I see that shade. Yeah, let's do that. We have Alchemist and Midas. Okay, they're not exact. I feel like Midas has a little bit more kind of peachiness, maybe like a rose gold to it, whereas Alchemist is just more kind of brassy overall, but not a terrible comparison. Daylily right here is way more orange than any of the shades in there. Candlelight looks like kind of different too. Let's swatch some more shimmers next to each other. I kind of want to try Nubia with like one of these, and I don't know which one. Let me just swatch out these in order. On my right side. Okay, so this is Firefly. That's a pretty soft shade. And this is Luster. Okay, a little bit more of like, I don't know, pink champagne. Next to Luster, I'm gonna swatch Nubia. The sparkle in Nubia is just like way much more prettier in my opinion. Shade wise, they're not exactly the same though. I actually want to move on to Burnish. Sorry, I'm all over the place here trying to see like what could be similar. Yeah, and I can already tell you there's nothing like that in here. I think I'm gonna swatch Varus next to that though because it is also a deeper shimmery shade. Burnish again just has kind of more depth, a little bit more purpliness to it. I cannot find a shade I want to swatch next to Firefly. I guess let's do Aurum. Let's just throw that in there, shall we? And then like I was saying, for the rest of these shades in Ambiance, they do lean super warm, so I'm just going to swatch the rest of those out real quick. This is Oasis. This is Marigold. Now, I think I'm going to swatch Aura next to that just because these kind of both have the same kind of golden reflect, although the shades are completely different because this is a white and the other one's kind of more pink. But they do both have a hint of gold in there. And then we have Summer Solstice. Clearly there's no reddish shade in Golden. And then Daylily. Like I was saying, yeah, this one does lean so much more on the orange side. And then let's do Candlelight. It's a really pretty shade. Is that it? 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm missing one. Who did I not swatch? I skipped Sunspot. So sorry. Yeah, and this is another dark shade, but it does have a hint of purple in there. All right, now who am I missing from Golden? Clearly a lot of these brown shades. All right, let's throw Panna right here. Again, this one is so close to my skin tone you can barely see it. Let's add Aria. Did I do Fizzy? I don't think I did Fizzy yet, did I? Here's Fizzy. Add Antique. And Kava. Oh, I love this shade too. Let's do Flesh right up here. Is that all the shades? 14, 15. Yes, I believe I have swatched all shades from each palette. All right, so overall, I feel like Golden and Ambiance aren't that similar. There was only about 4, maybe 5 shades that were a pretty good match there. And then like I said earlier, a lot of the shades in Ambiance do lean more on that orangey warm side, whereas the shades in Golden are more on the kind of more neutral side. But I can appreciate that Ambiance has a bit more depth to it, so I think if you do have a deeper skin tone, this might work better for you. But if you were to ask me which one I picked just based off of the color stories, I would go with Golden. The next palette that you guys wanted to see this one compared to is the Urban Decay Naked Honey. Again, this is my first time seeing them side by side with you on camera today. Honestly, just looking at these two palettes side by side, I am just so thrown off by the layout of this palette and like the shape of the shadows. I just way prefer this layout of a palette overall. But again, right off the bat, I'm not seeing a lot of similar shades. Like I'm looking at these 3 shades right here, and these ones do have a little bit more yellow in it, almost that kind of mustardiness. I mean, this golden shade might be close to something, but let's swatch out some similar shades and see what we can do here. Let's start with these 2 light shades. So again, starting with Maliko from Golden. I haven't swatched an Urban Decay palette in so long. And this is Flyby. Yeah, Flyby is definitely more of like a true matte white, whereas Maliko is more of an off-white. Now I want to do these 2. So we have Panna from Golden and Sweet from Naked Honey. Okay, they're not super exact, but again, I think they would serve a pretty similar purpose in an eye look. I would use both of these shades as like a blending or just like a base shade. Do these 3 shades next right after each other. We have Swarm, Amber, and Keeper. And then let's do these next 3. So we have Golden, Honey, and Queen. Okay, next to this golden shade, I want to swatch Oro. Pretty dang close there. I feel like Golden is maybe just a little bit brighter, maybe just a tad bit more yellow in there. And then let's go ahead and do the Alchemist next to Amber. I don't think they'll be super close, but I think it's the closest thing in here. Okay, not too bad. But again, Amber does have more of that kind of oranginess to it, but they are kind of both like that brassy kind of shade. And then as far as Swarm, Keeper, Honey, and Queen, there's nothing really close in here. Let's add Aurum, and I'm just gonna throw that next to Honey because it's the other gold shade in the palette, but clearly they're not like the same type of gold. This one is way more like green. Kind of reminds me more of the shade in the original gold palette. Let's keep going with Honey. So we'll do the next 3 here. Got Hive, Drip, and HBIC. Ooh, I wonder if Alchemist, might have been a little closer to that, but still not super exact. And let me just add this last shade while we're here. This is Sting. Let me add Log next to Sting since it's the deepest shade in both palettes, but Log is definitely deeper. Actually, that one swatched okay for the first time today. I'm gonna add Varus next to HBIC. And then the rest of the shades that I haven't swatched are again more of these kind of more nude, neutral tone brown shades that are not in Naked Honey. Okay, let me fill up my arm, finish this off here. Add Aria. Let's do Teak right here. Put Sandstone next to Hive. Gotta throw Fizzy in there. Honestly, I'm kind of being sloppy with the rest of these swatches since I know they don't match, but I just want to get them all side by side out for you. Add Kava. All right, who am I missing? I think just Flesh. 13, 14. Who am I missing? Nubia. How can I miss? I think this is my favorite shade from the palette. Yeah, looking at these two palettes side by side, I feel like they're not very similar at all. I think you're getting kind of a completely different range of shades in here. Again, where Naked Honey has more of these kind of yellowy orange shades that go into pretty green looking shades with like a brightish yellowy green. And then we have a lot of warmth in these matte shades down here and then this kind of more purpley shade. So I'm just not seeing really any similarities here. Again, this definitely all goes down to personal preference, but if you were to ask me which one would I pick, again, based off of the shade range, I would go with Golden. For shits and giggles, let's pull out the Natasha Denona Bronze palette because I just know there's going to be one of you that's going to be like, can you put these two side by side? There you are. The shades in bronze definitely do lean more on that orangey warm tone side, which I feel like was super popular, you know, back in 2015, 2016, but I feel like nowadays just the trend overall is more neutral shadows, which I really like about the Golden palette. Even when I've tried to use like these shimmer shades recently, they just feel a little bit too warm for me. So yeah, I'm not seeing much similarities here. I think they are two completely different palettes. And then let me just quickly grab I Need a Nude since this one was so popular when it launched last year. It's funny looking at these two side by side because I Need a Nude looks so much more just kind of like taupey and cool tone compared to Golden. Where like you can tell that this palette does have a little bit more warmth to it, but again, it's not that orangey warmth that we're like so used to. All right, well now my beautiful palette is all beat up and swatched, but I love doing these kind of videos for you. I hope this was helpful in you deciding on whether or not you need this new Golden palette. And now I'm gonna put this palette to the test and I'm gonna do an entire eye look with this palette and that video will be up tomorrow. Don't forget, if you want to check out this palette on Natasha Denona's website, my code ANGELABRIGHT will save you some money. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.